CityCast Pittsburgh is supported today by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Pittsburghers love this place, and I've actually never been, so it's definitely on my list to check out. There's history, there's artifacts like Michael Jackson's Thriller jacket, handwritten lyrics from the Beatles, Taylor Swift's piano, and right now they've also got a new exhibit on Saturday Night Live and their many talented musical guests. So you can see stuff from their skits and performances, and apparently it's the only place you can see SNL's entire performance archive. Check out the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to learn more about the music that connects us all. For more information, go to rockhall.com/exhibitions/SNL-50-years-music. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh. Historically, people in the Steel City aren't super fond of Cleveland, at least when it comes to our sports teams. But make no mistake, on the lake, the Forest City, Cleveland, has its champions. A few, in fact, who think it's in both our best interests to join forces. Today, we are with a regional economist and friend of the pod, Chris Bream, to talk about a new old idea, Cleveburg, and how it could bring us both to peak powers. And stick with us all this week. We're going to be bringing you a sponsored series all about why Pittsburgh and Cleveland should be friends instead of foes. It's Monday, July 28th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Chris, welcome back. You are our friend, of course, but you have also a grown-up title, the regional economist with the program in urban and regional analysis at the University of Pittsburgh's Center for Social and Urban Research. I just love when I get to read this off because you focus on so many things.
Well, it's good to be back, and thank you for spitting all that out. I'm sure my boss or bosses will appreciate that.
I know you do a lot of work on regional competitiveness, economic and demographic forecasting, industry analysis here in Pittsburgh and beyond. I want to know, though, do you actually like Cleveland? Are you a fan?
Sure. I when I'm in Cleveland, I sometimes feel like I'm in Pittsburgh, but I think there's a lot to do in Cleveland. I think I should get there more. I mean, I'm there for work, been there for Steelers games a few times in my life.
Okay, brave.
On the lake, the Rock and Roll Museum that is there, or they have a great symphony. They have the art museum is one of the best in the world. Professionally, it's an eds and meds place, right? It's got a health center. It's got a couple urban universities. Cleveland State is there. Case Western University is there. So it shares that with Pittsburgh as well. So I think there's a lot of similarities.
You make a pretty good case. I mean, why Cleveland, though? Like, why would you say that Cleveland is an ideal partner for us here in Pittsburgh?
This idea of Cleveland, Cleveburg, as it were.
Cleveburg.
I like to take credit for the term, but I did not create Cleveburg. I've heard it in the past, but so long in the past that I can't find any original source for it. Look, it's just up the road, right? I think if you get up there, you can get in your car, you could be in Cleveland in 2 hours. That's a pretty short distance. There are literally areas of the country where people commute to work every morning for 2 hours. That's kind of crazy, but that's pretty common in some areas. So you could almost think of these as sort of the same area now. I'm not saying we do, but you could. I've always been struck by the fact that, if there are two regions or two cities that have similar histories, have a lot of similarities in terms of where they've been, where they're at, where they're going. You could probably say it's Pittsburgh and Cleveland, yet there's really not much going on, right? I don't think I've really ever seen the two mayors talking to each other in a joint event. I don't really think there's a lot of cross-border, by that I mean the state borders, Ohio, Pennsylvania stuff going on. Mm-hmm. But I would say we have a lot of similar interests. So in terms of sort of what cities need, maybe what they want to lobby for from the federal government, or economic trajectories, right? We're both regions that have a pretty tremendous industrial, if not industrial steel, certainly industrial histories. We've a lot of changes. Cleveland is as much an eds and meds place as Pittsburgh is. It's on the water, granted not a lake and not rivers, but it's got that going on. So I've always been shocked that there's not more going on between the two sets of leaders or business people thinking about us collectively.
That's something we can take to the incoming administration, I suppose. I mean, how would you say that maybe Pittsburgh could help Cleveland? Because, like, it's one thing to be alike, it's another to, like, help each other in the future, right?
Oh, well, where would I start? That's a good question. If I had a magic wand or a mythical pot of money, which I don't, certainly transportation. I think you can get. I have to admit, I should know. I don't know. I think you can get on Amtrak and get to Cleveland, but I think the timing is pretty awful, so I don't think anyone's choosing to do that. But there could easily be more enhanced transportation between the two, maybe more rail lines. A lot of different rail proposals have been coming out of Ohio and the Midwest, like connecting Chicago and Columbus and Cleveland and Pittsburgh or whatever.
Which speaks to this idea of regionalism that I've heard you talk about a lot, right? Like, we are Pennsylvanians here based on an arbitrary boundary drawn 200 years ago. But, like, maybe we culturally align more closely with our neighbors to the west.
Most issues, I would say all the important public policy issues we face are probably regional scale, right? I mean, public transportation, or just transportation in general, highways. You don't build a highway for one county. And take any environmental issue, right? Any issue with a bad emitter, the pollution doesn't stick into any one county or any one city. So the problem is we have no construct to really address regional issues, right? There's no regional leader. We don't elect anyone as representing this multi-county region, let alone into Ohio, right? Before we get in there. So we're always talking about this, and I don't think anyone's found a really great answer for how to address metropolitan scale problems. Not just here, but most anywhere else in the U.S. With only a few exceptions, there is no metropolitan scale governance structure in the U.S.
But you have imagined one, or someone has, Cleveburg, and you've been talking about it for a while now. Like, as a city, what is the benefit to attaching yourself to another close-ish municipality in this way, like formally?
When cities go and try and argue for the federal government for certain types of programs or funding, I would have to imagine whatever is good or bad for Pittsburgh is good or bad for Cleveland. So I think strength in numbers.
Okay.
And from a lobbying effort, I think is sort of one sort of simple thing that could happen more. And maybe it does in ways I don't see, but I don't see it sort of publicly.
Today's show is supported by Downtown Cleveland. Downtown Cleveland is your next great city escape. From the riverfront to the lakefront, you can discover a vibrant, walkable destination alive with energy and excitement. If you're looking for big city experiences mixed with a strong sense of community, Downtown Cleveland delivers. With more than 260 restaurants, bars, and cafes, plus 3 iconic stadiums, there's always something happening. And when the sun sets on Lake Erie, the city lights up with live music, dancing, craft cocktails, world-class entertainment, and more. You can visit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, catch a show at Playhouse Square, it's the second largest theater district in the U.S., or head to the Flats East Bank for open-air patios and riverfront views. Whether you're into culture, food, sports, or nightlife, Downtown Cleveland has it all, and it's just a short drive from Pittsburgh. Plan your adventure at downtowncleveland.com.
Today's episode is sponsored by Ohio Wines. Ohio Wines are an invitation from people passionate about creating unique wine happenings for all wine lovers, from the connoisseur to the casual sipper. It's an invitation to explore an unpretentious wine region, sewn together by meaningful connections with a focus on experiences. It's not about graduating from a tasting course at an award-winning winery. It's not always about the sunset view from the Ohio River Valley's vine-studded hills, or the sordid details of a Lake Erie wine cellar's existence during Prohibition. It's about discovering a hidden taste for Cabernet, or learning something new about your soulmate after 30 years. It's about hearing a century of passion in a master vintner's voice. It's about celebrating the romance, craftsmanship, delight, and curiosity found only in Ohio wines. It's about inspiring memories and forging deeper connections with yourself and loved ones in places held dear. It's about life grown here. Order your free Ohio wine guide to plan your visit at www.findohiowines.com.
this might be a less popular question, but do you think there's things that are going well in Cleveland that we could learn lessons from? That, I don't know, maybe something's hitting over there and it could work for us.
I think they've struggled with the same things we have.
Mm-hmm.
We're proud of our symphony. People don't realize the Cleveland Symphony is ranked even higher. It's sort of a world-class symphony. I mean, they've sort of poured into the Cleveland Clinic has been serving a global clientele for medical tourism, probably as much so or more so or longer than UPMC or than our hospitals have. So I think we're sort of on the same path. I'm not quite sure I'll sort of say they've done anything better or worse than we have. I'll leave it there for the moment, I guess.
I'll let you off the hook. So, I mean, let's level set, though, because we are only half joking about this Cleveburg idea. How big is Cleveland compared to Pittsburgh? Because you and I have talked a lot about Pittsburgh's population, how it's been pretty stagnant. But I wondered about our metro areas because, for both cities, those are just so much bigger.
Cleveland's probably a little bigger than us. I looked it up for the show just because I don't have it memorized, 360,000 versus our 300,000, but that's a meaningless number. And this is how lines are drawn, around these different cities, the municipalities. I mean, the metro regions are about the same. We're about 2.4 million. Cleveland's about 2.1 million. I mean, so I think the theme here you'll hear from me is that there's a lot of similarities between the two, right? I mean, I don't think you'll feel you're in a bigger or smaller place in Cleveland than you are in Pittsburgh.
So say we join forces then, become the Cleveburg metropolitan area, an MSA, or maybe a combined statistical area. That's a new term that you taught me, Chris, a CSA. How much does this sort of thing matter? Like, does being bigger, a bigger region, give us more clout or more power in some kind of way?
Well, I mean, it's a deep question, but deeper than you might realize. I mean, it's just a broader definition. It opens up how we think about this. You didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. I mean, we define the metro area because of commuting, right? We sort of think if you have the ability to live in this region and work in this region, the commuting flows are what define what is the integrated region. So if you sort of loosen the parameters a little bit, you get a larger area. But this question of concentration and scale being on a list in my sort of economic development kind of hat world, people worry about site selection, like where is investment going. There's sort of some people believe that you got to be on a list of the big MSAs to sort of be a target of sort of large scale investment. I'm not quite sure how true that is, but people really want to be on a metro area list. And there's sort of other reasons it might matter. There's certain federal rules that sort of allocate where money goes to that might matter whether you're in an MSA or not. But let's keep it from Milwaukee.
So just that idea that bigger is often better, at least in terms of currying favor or maybe looking attractive to a potential investor, like a business or something that wants to come here.
I'd argue against the bigger is better, but certainly a lot of people do believe, larger metro areas are sort of on the list for potential certain types of investment. So yeah, it's better to sort of be on that list than to be not on the list.
Well, so how big is the list and where are we on it now? What is our number, Chris? What's our number?
What is our number? I should know off the top of my head. We're either 27 or 28. I actually forget.
Okay.
28th largest metro area. Sometimes there'll be a news story if we drop down, up or down one, but people ask me, does it matter? I'm like, no, but there are actually 300 plus metro areas in the U.S. So there are some things that are metro areas that you might not think as sort of being destinations in the country. Johnstown is a metro area, but that sort of isn't sort of on the same scale as Pittsburgh.
Okay, 27, 28, that actually feels respectable when it's on a list of 300 plus. Let's bring this home, I guess, keeping everything in scope, who we are seemingly trying to be right now. Are you still convinced by Cleveburg? Does the idea of joining forces with Cleveland, does it still inspire you?
I mean, look, I think of Cleveburg as a way to motivate a greater thinking of what these regions are. We're not insular. We are, the old joke, we don't cross rivers in Pittsburgh. Well, the region's 8 counties. We share a lot of family ties between Pittsburgh and Cleveland. There's a lot of migration of people moving back and forth between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So I think just to begin with, there are a lot of connections already built in. And so I think it's not sort of like we're trying to make an artificial thing. I mean, as you get closer to Cleveland, you'll get to, and there's a lot of communities between here and Cleveland. This isn't just about Pittsburgh and Cleveland. I mean, if you the map we once made of this greater Cleveland included, Youngstown and Akron and Canton and, maybe even Weirton and Wheeling and maybe some other places. And these are large and small places that really all have a lot of similar things going on and a lot of movement of people between them and a lot to really justify thinking of them as a more integrated place than we do now, at least.
I mean, you make a good point. We're I feel like we're centering Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Do you think that some of these folks in the middle, like our border communities, as it were, like, would they be on board with this? Do you think? Like, do they feel like they have to pick an allegiance, or do they just not fuss with either of us?
I don't know. There probably is a dividing line between who roots for which football team.
Right? Like, in my own neighborhood, there are a couple of Cleveland fans, and everybody knows where their houses are.
Well, look, I mean, I'm old enough to go back to when Rumbles in the stadium parking lots were real deals because so many people would come down from Cleveland for football games or vice versa. Like I said, probably one of the first times I went to Cleveland was probably for a football game, and you fight with your siblings more. Well, those were real fights, so.
Oh, it definitely was for me, my first Cleveland game. And also, they weren't even playing Pittsburgh, and I wore a Steelers jersey just to be a jerk.
Well, and look, it's a sign of the times that you're safe doing that now. I don't think you would have been safe doing that.
I got yelled at a lot.
Years.
Yeah.
It's all toned down. I do put my own Cleveburg support on hiatus for football games, and I hate to point out that the real Cleveland Browns aren't in Cleveland anymore, but they moved a long time ago.
Yes, they disappeared in the night to go to Baltimore. But that's not in the spirit of brotherly love, Chris. I mean, if someone wanted to do this, who declares things like that? Like if Cleveburg became our new metropolitan area, if we had this, if I'm doing the straight math correctly, a 4.5-ish million population suddenly, who would make that choice? Who gets to do that?
Why not me? I'll declare it. Let's just be done with it and say we're this is an official thing. So no, there is. I teach this in class. There is a very boring way to make this happen. If a bunch of people in Cleveland or Pittsburgh took jobs in the other place and commuted back and forth, this actually would be a real thing. We would start calling this I don't know what we would call it. It would be the Greater Youngstown metropolitan area, I guess. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Although lots of things are changing, right? This world of telework and working from home is changing the way we think about a lot of things. So, I mean, in the long-term future, we will have to start thinking about metropolitan areas differently than we do now, for sure.
Chris, we will keep bugging you about Cleveburg and our past and what that might mean about our future for many shows to come, I'm sure. Thank you, as always.
Great. Great to be here.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. And a little thing to look out for. Chris Bream actually has a book coming out soon all about our steel history, a lot about Pittsburgh, a little bit about Cleveland and how the industry has ebbed and flowed over the years. I'm really looking forward to reading it. You should check it out. We'll have a link in our show notes. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. All the details are at membership.citycast.fm. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. We'll talk to y'all soon. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about like the comparison to Philly, right? Like, we have our governor, but like when the state is as big as Pennsylvania and we're so far away and so different, like in terms of identity, like I know there's many similarities, but it just, and I'm an outsider, so I guess I'm only speaking to my one small perspective, but Pittsburgh and Philly feel different. And Pittsburgh and Philly seem to have very different trajectories in terms of their history and how they've fashioned themselves. So it just like it doesn't feel as cohesive as I would say maybe some states do because of their smaller geographies maybe or more similar like histories. Like we just don't have that with our next biggest city.
This may actually be the genesis of Cleveburg for me, right? If someone calls up and says some question like, I want to talk about the Pennsylvania anything, right? Economy, population, anything at all. What they get from me is this long diatribe about sort of what you just summarized, that like there is no Pennsylvania economy, right? There's nothing that connects us or what's going on here with the Allentowns of the world. What's going on in Johnstown has nothing to do with what goes on in Philadelphia. We are a collection of pretty disparate regions, and there are a few things that bind us together. Laws passed in Harrisburg might make us all complain about state stores or something like that.
Yeah. We all have to exist under the fine wine and good spirit store, but like that's kind of it. Is like just like some antiquated laws and some fussing back and forth about that.
Yeah, and so then I'll go on that Pittsburgh has much more in common, or is much more economically connected with Cleveland and Weirton and Wheeling than anything going on in Philadelphia. And that's just the way of the world. I mean, blame the founding fathers for, all the various efforts to create a different state out here. It's not a coincidence that a lot of them were from here, West Sylvania and all these ideas that people thought of maybe having a different state out here never came to pass. But
it worked for West Virginia. We just didn't get our act together.
It took a civil war, So,
I'm not recommending the trajectory. I'm just saying it happened for a different state, really close to us.
We didn't talk about this, and it's my fault for not giving you any clue about this. There's some weird economic history between us and sort of Ohio and sort of competition. There for 50 or 100 years, there was a plan to build a canal connecting the Ohio River with Lake Erie, and that. I mean, why would you want that? Well, it would help a lot of industries that like might have helped us. You bring a lot of iron ore in from the Great Lakes, might help coal get out there. Basically, a lot of Ohio people have generally wanted that, but it was actually Pittsburgh and people in Pittsburgh who didn't want it because it would have enhanced competition. It would have helped their steel producers more than it would have helped ours. And so, like, there was never any support for this along the way. So, I mean, how does this fit in this? I mean, our competition is really Cleveland. Again, this is not ever an issue with Philadelphia, although I guess we could talk about the Pennsylvania main line, but that's a construct from like 250 years ago.
Well, I mean, I think it does like play into the modern day. Like even what had just happened with, U.S. Steel and that pending sale.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the villain for some in all of this was Cleveland Cliffs, it turns out. Now, and for others, they were the heroes. But like, it was interesting to see these two companies with at least the names U.S. Steel in Pittsburgh and Cleveland Cliffs in Cleveland going at each other in this way. Like, it's just, it feels like something from the past.
But we are living in our past here in town, so it continues on.